right, everyone, get ready because today we are diving into the world of a lipolysis Mumbai style.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We've gotten a ton of questions from you all about this, and it seems like a lot of you are really interested in banishing some stubborn fat, right?
That's right. And luckily, there are more and more options available all the time.
You're not kidding. But let's back up for a second. Before we get lost in all the details about the latest and greatest treatments, we need to make sure everyone understands the basics. Lipolysis, when you really get down to it, is just a scientific term for breaking down fat cells.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that it's not some sort of magic solution for weight loss.
Definitely not a magic bullet. But from the research you sent over, it seems like you're particularly interested in 3 specific treatments available in Mumbai, am I right? Ultrasonic lipolysis, injection lipolysis, and laser lipolysis.
You're spot on.
Well, we will absolutely dive into each of those. We even have some questions about specific clinics and costs in Mumbai, which we will get to.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. But I think before we jump into the specifics of each treatment, it's helpful to understand a bit about how lipolysis actually works in our bodies. You know, the science behind it all. What do you think?
I completely agree. Having that foundation will make those Mumbai options even clearer. So let's get into it. Imagine this. Your fat cells are like tiny little Lego structures called triglycerides.
Okay, I'm already liking where this is going. Lego analogies are always a win.
Right. So lipolysis is basically like taking apart those Lego structures, breaking them down into their individual building blocks, glycerol and fatty acids. And to do this, our bodies have these amazing little tools called enzymes.
Enzymes. So are these like little construction workers in our bodies dismantling fat Legos?
Pretty much. Think of enzymes like ATGL, HSL, and MGL as tiny little scissors that go around snipping those fat molecules apart.
Incredible. So we've got this whole microscopic process going on without us even realizing it.
Exactly. But it's not just a random free-for-all demolition derby happening in our cells. This process is very carefully controlled.
Of course, there's always a boss, right?
Exactly. And in this case, the bosses are proteins called regulatory proteins. These proteins, like paralipin 1A and CGI58, act like an on or off switch for lipolysis. They control when the process starts and stops.
So it's a very organized construction site, not just a demolition free-for-all. But what about those hormones we always hear about when it comes to weight loss? Where do they fit into all of this?
Oh, the hormones are like the foreman of this whole operation. They play a huge role in how our bodies make the decision to either store or burn fat.
That makes sense, but tell me more about how that actually works.
Well, take insulin, for example. Insulin is like that one foreman who's all about keeping things nice and tidy. It wants to make sure all those Lego blocks, those fat molecules, are neatly organized and stored away for later use.
Which makes sense, right? Our bodies need to have some energy reserves in case we run low.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, you have other hormones like catecholamines, which is a fancy way of saying adrenaline, and glucagon.
Adrenaline, that fight or flight hormone.
The one and only. So these hormones are like this foreman who come in yelling, "All right, team, break time's over. We need to break down those Legos and get some energy moving. Stat." They send the signal that it's time to release those stored fats for fuel.
Wow, that is fascinating. So it's like a constant push and pull between storing energy and burning it, all orchestrated by these hormones.
Precisely. And get this. By understanding how these processes work, doctors can actually tailor lipolysis treatments to your individual needs.
So what you're saying is that by understanding how these hormones, these enzymes, and these proteins all work together, we can actually make smarter choices about how we approach things like those stubborn fat areas we were talking about earlier.
100%. It helps us understand why a certain treatment might work better than others, depending on what's going on in your body. And speaking of treatments, I know you're curious about that ultrasonic lipolysis, the one that actually shakes the fat cells apart.
Hold on. Shaking fat cells apart. You're kidding. Tell me more about this. Shaking fat cells apart, did you say? We can't go to a break without hearing about this.
Right. I mean, it does sound a little crazy when you put it like that, but it's actually a pretty well-established technique.
Really? And it's popular in Mumbai, you were saying?
Definitely. It's called ultrasonic lipolysis, and it really does use ultrasound waves to, well, shake those fat cells until they break down.
Okay, so like those sonic cleaning devices, but for our body.
You got it. Those use sound waves too, just like ultrasonic lipolysis. And the best part, it's non-invasive.
Non-invasive, so no needles or anything.
Exactly. No needles, no incisions. It's much gentler than some of the other procedures out there, which means less downtime for you.
That's awesome, especially for those of us who are a little squeamish around needles, I have to say. But you mentioned it's becoming really popular in Mumbai. Are there certain areas of the body people are using this for specifically?
Oh, absolutely. It's really effective on those areas where, let's face it, we all tend to store a bit of extra fat. The abdomen, thighs, arms, even the neck and face.
Makes sense. Those are the usual suspects for sure. But I'm curious, from what you've seen, how many of these ultrasonic lipolysis sessions are we talking about before you actually see a difference?
That's always the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's not always an instant thing. It really does vary from person to person, and it depends on things like how much fat you're looking to target, which area of the body you're focusing on, and even the specific technology the clinic uses.
Right, of course. Everybody's different.
Totally. But I can say that a lot of clinics in Mumbai seem to be recommending somewhere between, say, 6 and 8 sessions spaced out over a few weeks for the best results. That came up a lot in the research you sent.
Okay, so it's not like a one-time miracle treatment. It's more of a process, which makes sense. You've got to put in the time to see the results.
Right. Like with anything worth it, it takes time.
So true. Now, we've talked about this whole shaking thing, but you also mentioned something called injection lipolysis. I'm a little unclear on what that is exactly. Does it involve actually injecting something into the fat cells?
You read my mind. That's exactly what it is. But it's not as scary as it might sound. Think of it like this. If ultrasonic lipolysis is like using a jackhammer to break down those fat cells, injection lipolysis is more like using a tiny little sculptor's chisel.
Ooh, a sculpting chisel. Much less intimidating than a jackhammer, that's for sure.
Right.
So how does it actually work? Tell me all about this sculpting technique.
So basically, with injection lipolysis, a special solution is injected directly into the fat deposits you want to target.
Okay, and what's in this magic solution?
The key ingredient is something called deoxycholic acid, which might sound kind of scary, but it's actually a naturally occurring substance.
Naturally occurring, so it's already in our bodies.
Exactly. It's produced by our liver, and it actually helps our bodies break down and absorb fats. So with injection lipolysis, we're basically just giving your body a little helping hand in those stubborn areas where it might need a boost.
Oh, that's interesting. So we're kind of amplifying a natural process. That's cool. You said earlier this is generally used for smaller areas.
Right. It's really effective on those smaller, more stubborn pockets of fat that just don't seem to budge no matter how you diet or exercise.
Yeah.
Things like a double chin or bra fat, that's where it really shines.
Yeah. It sounds like a good option for those more subtle refinements, like really sculpting and contouring specific areas of the body. I can see why people would be drawn to that. But speaking of sculpting and contouring, I have to ask, what about side effects? I'm always a little wary of injections just because I know there can be some bruising and swelling and things like that.
You're right to ask. Anytime we're talking about injections, it's super important to be aware of the potential side effects. And yeah, with injection lipolysis, some of the most common ones are swelling, bruising, maybe a little tenderness around the injection site is totally normal.
Right, right. So those all sound like pretty normal temporary side effects, nothing too crazy.
Exactly. They usually disappear within a few days, a week at most. But of course, it's important to talk to a qualified medical professional before undergoing any type of treatment like this.
Absolutely. Get a proper consultation. Don't be afraid to ask all your questions, and make sure you feel comfortable and confident with whoever you choose. But now I know we've still got one more big player in the lipolysis game to talk about: laser lipolysis. It sounds pretty high-tech, almost intimidating, to be honest.
It does have a certain ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's becoming more and more common. You're probably familiar with traditional liposuction, right?
Sure. I've definitely heard of it.
Well, laser lipolysis is like its cooler, more high-tech cousin.
High-tech cousin. Okay, now I need to hear more. I love it. What makes it so high-tech? Cooler, more high-tech. Tell me more about this laser lipolysis. How is it different from the liposuction I've always heard about?
Well, with traditional liposuction, they basically go in and manually break up fat cells with, a cannula.
Right.
Laser lipolysis, like the name suggests, uses laser energy to do the heavy lifting. And what's really cool is that the laser energy is super precise.
Oh, okay.
So instead of just generally breaking up the fat cells, the laser targets them and basically melts them or liquefies them.
Melts them, like butter.
Kind of. It makes them a lot easier to remove, that's for sure. And a lot of clinics in Mumbai are actually combining laser lipolysis with traditional liposuction techniques.
Ah, so they're kind of working together then. Laser first, then liposuction.
Exactly. It only makes sense, right? You're already in there working with the laser, might as well go all in. But it's not just about convenience. There are actually some real advantages to using lasers in this way.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, for one thing, because it's so precise, there's less trauma to the surrounding tissues.
Oh, that makes sense.
So patients tend to have less bruising, less swelling, and their recovery time is often quicker. And then, get this, the heat from the laser can actually stimulate collagen production.
Wait, collagen?
Yeah.
As in the stuff that keeps our skin looking all, like, firm and young and amazing?
You got it. It's
Yeah.
not going to replace a full-on facelift or anything, but that collagen stimulation can lead to a firmer, smoother appearance in the area you had treated. And from what I've seen, a lot of clinics in Mumbai are really playing up this benefit, especially for areas like the abdomen, the arms, even the neck, places where you sometimes get a little bit of loose skin after you've had fat removed.
So not only are you getting rid of fat, but you're actually improving your skin tone at the same time. That's pretty amazing, I have to say. But let's get real for a second, especially since we are talking about Mumbai. These kinds of procedures don't exactly come cheap, right? So what are we talking about cost-wise with these different lipolysis treatments? What kind of factors influence the price tag?
It's a good question. It's definitely something to think about, and costs can really vary from clinic to clinic depending on a few things. Obviously, the biggest factor is the size of the area you're looking to treat. Treating a little bit of a double chin is going to be way different from, like, doing your entire abdomen and thighs.
Right, that makes sense.
And just like with anything else, the more sessions you need, the more expensive it's going to be overall.
Of course, of course.
Some people just naturally see results faster than others. And then, of course, there's the clinic itself. The doctor's experience, the technology they use, even the location. A fancy clinic in a high-rent area is probably going to charge more than a smaller practice tucked away somewhere. But here's the thing, and this is important, especially for someone like you who's clearly done their homework. Don't let cost be your only deciding factor.
It's easy to get caught up in that, though, especially when you're looking at these kinds of procedures, But it's my body we're talking about. I get it.
Exactly. At the end of the day, you're looking for someone you trust, someone who's experienced, qualified, and gives you a good feeling. Don't be afraid to ask to see before and after photos, read online reviews, schedule a few consultations with different providers.
Like dating, but for your body.
Yes, exactly. Find the right fit. Talk to them about their approach, what you can realistically expect, see if your personalities mesh well. A good doctor won't just treat you like another client. They'll treat you like an individual with your own unique needs and goals.
That's such good advice. Honestly, I think that goes for any kind of medical professional, not just someone doing lipolysis.
Yeah.
You've got to trust who you're working with.
100%. It's a big decision, so take your time, do your research, trust your gut.
Words to live by. Wow, this has been fascinating. I feel like we've done a deep dive into the world of lipolysis, from those tiny enzymes snipping away at fat molecules all the way to zapping fat with lasers. Who knew? And it's amazing how accessible these treatments are becoming, especially here in Mumbai. But as we've been talking about today, it's important to be informed, to find a provider you trust, and ultimately make the choices that feel right for you and your body. Thanks for going on this journey with us. Remember, knowledge is power, and we'll catch you next time, right here on The Deep Dive.